In the vast emptiness of space, where civilizations rise and fall like distant stars, humanity was supposed to be nothing more than a footnote in galactic history. We were the newcomers, the primitive species that barely crawled out of our solar system before stumbling into a universe filled with ancient empires and technological marvels beyond our wildest dreams. But humans have always had one trait that separated us from every other species in the galaxy: we don't know when to quit. When the Zephyrian Empire cast out their own Empress for crimes that would make lesser beings tremble, they never imagined she would find refuge among the barbaric humans. They certainly never expected that this disgraced royal, wielding power that could reshape reality itself, would become fascinated with a single human male who treated her not as a goddess or a monster, but simply as someone who needed help. Some say love is the most dangerous force in the universe. Others claim it's human stubbornness. But, when an immortal empress with the power to destroy star systems quietly decides that one particular human belongs to her, the galaxy is about to discover that both forces combined can reshape the very fabric of existence. This is the story of how humanity went from galactic nobodies to the most feared and respected species in known space, all because one woman refused to let anyone harm what she claimed as hers. And how one man, completely unaware of the cosmic forces swirling around him, accidentally became the catalyst for the greatest shift in galactic power the universe had ever seen. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished welding the last support beam on the outer hull of Research Station Prometheus. The work was tedious, dangerous, and paid barely enough to keep him fed, but it was honest work. More importantly, it kept him far away from the political games and corporate backstabbing that had driven him to the outer rim of human space. The station floated in the shadow of a dying red giant, its ancient light painting everything in shades of amber and crimson. It was supposed to be humanity's first deep space archaeological site, a place where scientists could study the remnants of civilizations that had died out millions of years before humans even existed. Instead, it had become a refuge for misfits, outcasts, and people who preferred the honest danger of space to the corrupt safety of the inner systems. Marcus didn't mind. He had grown up on Mars, in the industrial districts where every day was a struggle against the hostile environment. Space work felt natural to him, even peaceful. There was something pure about the vacuum, the way it didn't care about your past or your politics. It would kill you just as quickly whether you were a corporate executive or a station maintenance worker. He was preparing to head back inside when his proximity sensors started screaming. Marcus spun around, magnetic boots clanging against the hull, and saw something that made his heart stop. A massive ship was approaching the station, easily 10 times larger than anything in humanity's fleet. Its design was unlike anything he had ever seen, all flowing curves and crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them in impossible ways. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like a predator that had evolved beyond the need to hide its lethal nature. As it drew closer, Marcus could see that its hull was damaged. Sections of the crystal-like armor were cracked or missing entirely, and what looked like weapon burns scarred its elegant surface. Whatever this ship was, it had been through hell. Marcus activated his comm system, his hands shaking slightly as he tried to reach the station's control room. "Control, this is Chen. We've got a massive unknown vessel approaching. Looks alien, definitely not human design. Request immediate assistance." The response came back quickly, but it wasn't what he expected. Dr. Sarah Williams, the station's chief archaeologist, sounded excited rather than alarmed. "Marcus, stay exactly where you are. We're reading incredible energy signatures from that ship. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Doc, with respect, that thing could vaporize our entire station without breaking stride. Maybe we should be more concerned about survival than scientific discovery. The ship isn't targeting us, Marcus. In fact, it's broadcasting what our computers are interpreting as a distress signal. It's badly damaged and appears to be seeking refuge." Marcus watched as the alien vessel slowly maneuvered itself into a position parallel to the station. Up close, he could see that the damage was even worse than he had initially thought. Entire sections of the ship looked like they had been torn away by weapons that operated on principles he couldn't begin to understand. "Control, I'm seeing massive hull breaches on this thing. If there are survivors aboard, they're going to need help fast." "That's what we're thinking too. Marcus, I need you to prepare the emergency docking tube. We're going to attempt contact."
Marcus felt a chill run down his spine.
In all of humanity's brief history in space, they had encountered exactly 0 intelligent alien species. Oh, there had been plenty of ruins and artifacts, evidence that the galaxy had once teemed with life. But the civilizations that had built those wonders had been dead for eons. The discovery of a living alien species would change everything about humanity's place in the universe. As Marcus worked to extend the docking tube toward the alien ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet life of honest work was about to come to an abrupt end. The universe had a way of appending everything just when you thought you had found peace. The alien ship responded to the docking tube with surprising precision. Sections of its hull shifted and reconfigured themselves, creating what appeared to be a compatible docking port. The technology involved was so advanced that Marcus felt like he was watching magic rather than engineering. When the connection was finally established, Marcus found himself standing next to the airlock, waiting alongside Dr. Williams and 3 security officers. The station's entire crew of 15 people had gathered in the corridor, everyone wanting to witness this historic first contact. The airlock cycled, and Marcus held his breath. When the inner door opened, the first thing he noticed was the smell. It wasn't unpleasant, exactly, but it was definitely alien. Like ozone mixed with something floral and metallic at the same time. Then, she stepped through the doorway, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was tall, easily 7 feet in height, with skin that seemed to shift between pale blue and silver depending on the angle of the light. Her hair was long and white, but it moved as if it were underwater, defying the station's artificial gravity. Most striking of all were her eyes, which glowed with a soft violet light and seemed to hold depths that suggested vast intelligence and terrible sadness. She wore what appeared to be armor, but it was like no armor Marcus had ever seen. It looked organic, as if it had been grown rather than forged, and it seemed to respond to her movements with fluid grace. Despite the obvious alien nature of her appearance, there was something undeniably regal about the way she carried herself. When she spoke, her voice was melodious but carried an undertone of authority that made everyone in the corridor instinctively straighten up.
I am Zara Thys Velandra, formerly of the Zephyrian royal house. I seek sanctuary among your people.
Dr. Williams stepped forward, her scientific training overriding her natural caution.
Welcome aboard Research Station Prometheus. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams, Chief Science Officer. We're honored by your presence, Your Majesty? The alien woman's expression grew cold. I am no longer entitled to that form of address.
I have been cast out from my empire, stripped of rank and title.
You may simply call me Zara.
Marcus found himself studying her face as she spoke. Despite her alien features, he could read the pain there as clearly as if she were human. Whatever had happened to her, whatever had led to her exile, it had cut deep.
What happened to your ship? Dr. Williams asked gently. Do you have wounded that need medical attention? Zara shook her head. I am the only survivor.
My ship was attacked by agents of my former empire. They sought to ensure that my exile would be permanent. The security officers shifted nervously at this revelation.
If this Zara was being hunted by an alien empire, harboring her could bring trouble that humanity was nowhere near equipped to handle.
Marcus surprised himself by speaking up.
You're safe here. Whatever happened before, whatever you're running from, you're safe now.
Everyone turned to look at him, including Zara. When their eyes met, Marcus felt something electric pass between them. Her glowing violet gaze seemed to see right through him, evaluating him in ways he couldn't begin to understand. You would offer sanctuary to one such as me, she asked quietly. You know nothing of my crimes or the dangers that follow in my wake. I know enough, Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. You're hurt, you're alone, and you asked for help. That's all I need to know. Something shifted in Zara's expression. The cold mask of royal dignity cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability underneath. Your species is either remarkably brave or remarkably foolish. Marcus grinned. Probably both. We're good at that. For the first time since her arrival, Zara almost smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her seem less like an alien goddess and more like a person who had been carrying too much pain for too long. Dr. Williams cleared her throat, reminding everyone that this was supposed to be a formal first contact situation.
If you're willing, we'd like to offer you quarters while we figure out the next steps. Our station isn't much, but it's safe and secure. Zara nodded graciously. I accept your hospitality with gratitude.
But, I must warn you, my presence here will not go unnoticed indefinitely.
The Zephyrian Empire has ways of tracking their former citizens, even across the vastness of space.
Then, we'll deal with that when it happens, Marcus said before anyone else could voice the obvious concerns. For now, you need rest and time to heal. As the group began to disperse, making arrangements for their unexpected guest, Marcus found himself volunteering to help Zara get settled. He told himself it was just basic hospitality, but he couldn't ignore the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't paying attention. There was something in her gaze that made him feel like he was standing at the edge of a precipice, about to take a step that would change everything. Over the following days, Marcus found himself spending more and more time with Zara. Officially, he was helping her understand human technology and customs. Unofficially, he was fascinated by her stories of the galaxy beyond human space, of empires that span thousands of worlds and technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Zara, for her part, seemed equally fascinated by human resilience and adaptability. She told him stories of species that had given up when faced with far less adversity than what humans dealt with on a daily basis. Your people build cities on worlds that would kill most other species within hours, she observed one evening as they stood in the station's observation deck, watching the red giant's dying light play across the hull of her damaged ship. You call places like this home, places where every day is a battle for survival. We're stubborn that way, Marcus replied. My grandfather used to say that humans are too stupid to know when we're beaten. Zara laughed, a sound like silver bells in a gentle breeze. Perhaps that is not stupidity. Perhaps it is the greatest wisdom of all. As they talked, Marcus began to understand more about what had led to Zara's exile. She had been the crown princess of an empire that had ruled a significant portion of the galaxy for over 1,000,000 years. The Zephyrians were an ancient species, one of the oldest still active in galactic politics. They had achieved a level of technological and social development that put them far beyond most other civilizations. But, with that advancement had come stagnation. The Zephyrian Empire was ruled by tradition and protocol that hadn't changed in hundreds of thousands of years. Innovation was discouraged, and any deviation from established norms was seen as a threat to social stability. Zara had been born with abilities that even other Zephyrians considered extraordinary. She could manipulate matter and energy at a quantum level, essentially rewriting the laws of physics in localized areas. In a younger civilization, such abilities would have been celebrated. In the ancient Zephyrian Empire, they were seen as dangerous aberrations. I tried to use my abilities to help our people, she explained as they shared a simple human meal in the station's small cafeteria. There were worlds in our empire where the population was suffering from diseases that conventional medicine couldn't cure. I could have healed them with a thought. But, the Council of Elders declared that interfering with natural selection was against our ancient codes. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. So they exiled you for wanting to save lives? Not directly. I may have disregarded their orders on several occasions. Zara's expression grew guilty. I healed entire worlds in secret, saved billions of lives that the Empire was willing to sacrifice for the sake of tradition. When they discovered what I had done, they declared me a threat to galactic stability and sentenced me to exile. And then, they tried to kill you anyway? Zara's eyes hardened. Certain factions within the Empire believed that even exile was too lenient a punishment. They sent hunter ships to ensure that my contamination would not spread to other civilizations. Marcus felt a surge of anger at the injustice of it all. Here was someone who had sacrificed everything to save innocent lives, and her own people had tried to murder her for it. Well, they failed. You're here, you're alive, and their loss is our gain. When Zara looked at him after that statement, Marcus saw something new in her glowing eyes. Something that made his heart race and his palms sweat. It was a look of possession, of someone who had found something precious and had no intention of letting it go. What Marcus didn't understand was that in Zephyrian culture, the act of offering sanctuary to an exiled royal carried implications that went far beyond simple hospitality. According to ancient law, anyone who provided protection to a cast-out member of the royal family became bound to that person in ways that transcended normal relationships. And Zara, despite her exile, still carried within her the full power and authority of her royal bloodline. Powers that would allow her to protect what she claimed, no matter who stood against her. As the days passed, Marcus began to notice changes in the way the other station crew members treated him. They seemed more deferential, more careful around him. When he asked Dr. Williams about it, she just gave him a strange look and said, "Haven't you noticed the way she looks at you, Marcus? Like you're the most important thing in the universe?" He had noticed, but he hadn't wanted to read too much into it. Zara was an alien princess with powers that could reshape reality. He was a maintenance worker from Mars who had dropped out of engineering school after his first semester. The idea that she might have romantic feelings for him seemed absurd. But then came the night when everything changed. The attack came without warning during the station's night shift. Marcus was in his quarters, trying to sleep despite the growing certainty that his life was spiraling into something far more complicated than he had ever imagined, when the emergency alarms started shrieking throughout the station. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his emergency suit, his mind automatically running through the checklist of possible disasters. Hull breach, reactor failure, asteroid impact, system malfunction. The list of things that could kill everyone aboard a space station was disturbingly long. But when he reached the command center, what he saw on the main display made his blood turn to ice. 3 ships had appeared at the edge of the sensor range, and they were unlike anything in humanity's databases. They were smaller than Zara's vessel but shared the same flowing, organic design aesthetic. More importantly, their weapons were already charging. Dr. Williams was coordinating the station's minimal defenses, her face pale with fear. "Marcus, thank God you're here. We're being hailed by the lead ship. They're demanding we surrender Zara immediately." "Where is she?" "In her quarters, I think." "Marcus, these ships are broadcasting identification codes from something called the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. I think her people have found her." Marcus felt his heart sink. After everything Zara had been through, her own people were here to finish what they had started. "What are our options?" "We don't have any," Dr. Williams said bluntly. "Our defensive capabilities are a joke compared to what those ships are carrying. We've got mining lasers and some basic deflector shields. They have weapons that could crack a moon." The main screen flickered, and suddenly, they were looking at the bridge of the lead Zephyrian ship. The figure that appeared was tall and imposing, with the same basic features as Zara but somehow colder, more predatory. His skin was a darker shade of blue, and his eyes glowed with amber light instead of violet. "Humans," the Zephyrian commander said, his voice carrying contempt that transcended species barriers. "I am Admiral Kethmore of the Imperial Hunter Fleet. You are harboring a criminal fugitive of the Zephyrian Empire. Surrender the exile Zara THYSS immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Dr. Williams stepped forward, her scientific training giving her the courage to speak in the face of certain death. "This is a civilian research station operating under the authority of the United Earth Colonial Administration. We don't recognize the jurisdiction of the Zephyrian Empire in human space." Admiral Kethmore laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your species controls perhaps a dozen systems at the far edge of civilized space. The Zephyrian Empire spans 10,000 worlds across 1,000,000 years of history. Your jurisdiction means nothing to us." "Then, you'll have to take her by force," Marcus said, stepping up beside Dr. Williams. "Because we're not handing over someone who asked for our protection." The Admiral's expression grew interested. "Ah, the primitive showing courage. How refreshing. Very well, human. Since you choose to stand between the Empire and justice, you may share in the consequences." The transmission cut off, and immediately the station shook as the Zephyrian ships opened fire. But, instead of the devastating barrage Marcus had expected, the weapons seemed designed to disable rather than destroy. They were taking their time, playing with their prey. "They want to board us," Dr. Williams realized. "They want to take Zara alive." That's when the lights in the command center dimmed, and everyone felt a pressure in the air that made their skin crawl. Marcus turned around to see Zara standing in the doorway, but she looked nothing like the vulnerable exile who had sought sanctuary just a week ago. Her armor had transformed, becoming more elaborate and ornate. Symbols glowed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Her hair was no longer flowing gently but was whipping around her head as if she stood in the center of a hurricane. Most dramatically of all, her eyes were blazing with violet fire that seemed to burn with the intensity of a star. "They should not have come here," Zara said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies human ears couldn't quite process. "They should not have threatened those under my protection." Marcus felt the temperature in the room drop by several degrees.
"Zara, what are you doing?"
She turned to look at him, and, for a moment her expression softened.
"I am doing what I should have done long ago, Marcus. I am claiming what is mine."
Before anyone could ask what she meant by that, Zara raised her hand and made a gesture that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. The station stopped shaking as the Zephyrian weapons fire simply stopped existing in the space around them. On the main screen, they could see Admiral Kethmore's ship powering up for a more devastating attack. But Zara was already walking toward the docking bay where her own damaged vessel waited. "You will not follow me," she said without turning around.
"This is not your fight."
Marcus found himself moving before he consciously decided to.
"Like hell it isn't. They came here looking for you, which makes it our fight too."
Zara stopped walking and slowly turned to face him.
"You do not understand what you are offering, Marcus.
If you stand with me now, if you choose to fight beside me, the consequences will reshape both our lives in ways that cannot be undone."
"Then, explain it to me." For a moment, Zara seemed to struggle with herself.
Then, she stepped closer to Marcus, close enough that he could feel the energy radiating from her transformed armor. "In my culture, when someone offers protection to an exiled royal, especially protection against their own people, it creates a bond that supersedes all other relationships.
If you stand with me against Kethmore, you will become mine in the eyes of Zephyrian law.
Not as a servant or subordinate, but as something far more significant." Marcus felt his heart racing, but not from fear. There was something in Zara's tone, in the way she looked at him, that made him understand she wasn't talking about political alliances or military partnerships.
"And what if I want that?" he asked quietly.
Zara's eyes flared brighter, and, for a moment the air around them shimmered with barely contained power.
"Then, you should know that I do not share what belongs to me. Ever."
Before Marcus could respond to that loaded statement, the station shook again. This time it was different, more violent.
Admiral Kethmore had apparently decided that subtlety was no longer required.
"They're targeting our reactor," Dr. Williams called out from her console. "If they breach the containment field, we're all dead."
Zara's expression hardened again. "No.
They will not harm what is under my protection." She turned to Marcus one more time.
"Choose now.
Stand with me, and accept everything that means. Or stay here and be safe." Marcus looked around the command center at his fellow humans. Dr. Williams, who had dedicated her life to understanding the mysteries of the universe.
Chenpa, the station engineer who sent half his salary back to his family on Luna.
Maria Santos, the young communications officer who dreamed of someday seeing Earth's blue oceans. These people had become his family over the past 2 years. And now an alien empire wanted to destroy them simply because they had shown kindness to someone in need. "I'm with you," Marcus said firmly. "Whatever that means, however, it changes things, I'm with you."
Something fundamental shifted in Zara's expression.
The mask of royal dignity fell away completely, replaced by something fierce and possessive and utterly devoted. "Then, you are mine," she said simply.
"And I am yours. Let the galaxy take note."
She kissed him then, right there in front of everyone, and Marcus felt power flow between them like electricity. When she pulled away, he could see symbols glowing faintly on his own skin, marks that matched the patterns on her armor.
"What just happened?"
Dr. Williams asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "Acclaiming," Zara replied without taking her eyes off Marcus. "Recognized by powers older than your species' existence." The station shook again, more violently this time.
Through the main screen, they could see that Admiral Kethmore's ships were moving into attack formation.
Whatever game they had been playing before was over. Zara took Marcus's hand, and he felt strength flow into him from the contact.
Come. It is time to show the Empire what happens when they threaten what belongs to us.
As they walked toward the docking bay, Marcus found his mind reeling from everything that had just happened. Somehow, in the space of a few minutes, he had gone from being a simple maintenance worker to being claimed by an alien princess with the power to reshape reality. The rational part of his mind was screaming that he was in way over his head. But the rest of him felt like he was exactly where he belonged.
Zara's ship responded to their approach by reconfiguring itself in ways that seemed to defy physics.
Sections of damaged hull sealed themselves, weapons systems that had been offline suddenly blazed to life, and the entire vessel seemed to grow larger and more menacing. Your ship was never as badly damaged as it appeared, Marcus realized.
It was damaged, Zara corrected as they boarded through an airlock that hadn't existed moments before.
But it was also adapting.
Learning. Preparing for this moment.
The interior of the ship was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. The walls were alive, pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns.
The control systems seemed to respond to Zara's thoughts rather than her touch.
Most unnervingly of all, the ship felt aware, as if it were watching him with invisible eyes. "Your vessel is alive," Marcus said, struggling to process what he was seeing. "All Zephyrian royal ships are grown rather than built," Zara explained as she settled into what appeared to be a command throne made of living crystal. "This is Whisper of Eternity, companion of my bloodline for 300,000 years. She has been waiting a very long time for this moment."
As if responding to her words, the ship's systems came fully online.
Marcus felt a tremor run through the hull as weapons beyond his understanding powered up. On the display screens that materialized around them, he could see Admiral Kethmore's ships beginning their final attack run on the research station. "They will not reach it," Zara said with quiet certainty.
The first hunter ship simply ceased to exist.
One moment it was there, weapons blazing as it dove toward the station. The next moment, the space it had occupied was empty except for a brief shimmer of displaced light. The second ship managed to fire one shot before it was caught in what looked like a bubble of twisted spacetime. Marcus watched in fascination and horror as the vessel was compressed into a sphere barely 10 meters across, its occupants presumably dying instantly.
Admiral Kethmore's flagship tried to retreat, but Zara's ship was already moving to intercept. The pursuit didn't last long.
When it was over, when the last of the Zephyrian ships had been reduced to scattered atoms, Marcus found himself alone with Zara in the control chamber of a vessel that operated on principles beyond human understanding.
"Is it always going to be like this?" he asked. "Running from your people, fighting off hunter fleets?" Zara smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression. "Oh, Marcus. We are not running anymore." She gestured, and the ship's display showed a star chart of incredible complexity. Systems by the thousands, connected by trade routes and communication networks that span half the galaxy. For 1,000,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire has stagnated under the rule of cautious old fools who fear change more than death itself. They cast me out because they believed my ideas were dangerous to their precious stability. The star chart zoomed in on a region that Marcus recognized as human space, though it was labeled as Frontier Zone Uncontrolled Territory in the Zephyrian databases. "But, here," Zara continued, "here is a species that embodies everything the Empire has forgotten. Courage. Innovation. The willingness to take risks for the sake of progress. The strength to protect what matters, regardless of the odds." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as he began to understand what she was suggesting. "Zara, what are you planning?" She turned to face him fully, and her eyes were blazing with an intensity that spoke of plans set in motion across cosmic timescales. "I am planning to give humanity what it needs to survive in a galaxy that sees it as insignificant. Technology, knowledge, protection. And, in return, humanity will help me build something new. Something better than the corrupt empire that cast us both aside." "Both aside?" Zara's smile grew wider. "Oh yes, Marcus. By claiming you, by binding yourself to me, you have been cast out from normal human society just as surely as I was cast out from mine. But, unlike my exile, ours will be the foundation of something magnificent." As if to emphasize her point,
the ship's displays showed dozens of vessels approaching from different directions.
But these weren't Zephyrian hunter ships.
They were human vessels, responding to the distress signal that research station Prometheus had sent out hours ago.
Your people are coming to help, Zara observed with satisfaction. Even though they don't understand the forces involved, even though they know they're outclassed, they're coming anyway.
That is why they will succeed where older species have failed. Marcus watched the approaching human fleet and felt a mixture of pride and terror. Ships from the colonial navy, corporate security forces, even a few independent traders who had been in the area when the call for help went out. They didn't have advanced alien technology or reality warping abilities, but they had something else. They had each other.
What happens now? He asked. Zara stood up from her command throne and moved to stand beside him.
When she took his hand, Marcus felt that flow of power again, stronger this time. The symbols on his skin glowed brighter, and he could feel his awareness expanding in ways that human biology wasn't designed to handle.
Now we go home, Zara said simply.
We go to Earth, and we begin the work of reshaping both our species' destinies.
Together.
As Whisper of Eternity turned toward the heart of human space, escorted by a growing fleet of vessels whose crews had no idea they were about to witness the beginning of humanity's transformation into a galactic superpower, Marcus realized that his quiet life was truly over. But, looking at Zara, seeing the fierce devotion in her glowing eyes and feeling the bond between them growing stronger with each passing moment, he found that he didn't mind at all. Of the journey to Earth took 3 weeks, and, during that time, Marcus learned that being claimed by an alien Empress came with consequences he had never imagined. The symbols that had appeared on his skin weren't just decorative. They were changing him at a cellular level, enhancing his physical and mental capabilities in ways that should have been impossible.
He could now survive in vacuum for short periods without a suit.
His reflexes had increased to the point where he could dodge projectiles fired at close range. Most disturbing of all, he was beginning to understand Zara's ship's living technology as if he had been born to it.
This is not normal human development, Dr.
Williams observed during one of her regular medical examinations. The research station's entire crew had been evacuated to the human escort fleet, but Sarah had insisted on continuing her studies of what she termed the most significant xenobiological event in human history. Nothing about this situation is normal, Marcus replied as he watched the readouts showing his enhanced vital signs.
But I feel fine. Better than fine, actually. That's what worries me.
These changes are happening too quickly to be natural evolution, even accelerated evolution.
Something is actively rewriting your genetic code.
Marcus looked through the medical bay's porthole at Whisper of Eternity, which was maintaining position at the center of the human fleet like a queen surrounded by her guard.
It's the bond with Zara.
She's sharing her abilities with me.
Without asking your permission first?
That gave Marcus pause. It was true that Zara had never explicitly asked if he wanted to be transformed. But then, again, she had warned him that accepting the bond would change everything. Maybe this was simply what she had meant. His contemplation was interrupted by an urgent message from the fleet's command ship.
Admiral Patricia Hayes, the highest-ranking officer in the escort fleet, wanted to speak with him immediately.
Marcus made his way to the communications array, where Admiral Hayes appeared on screen looking every bit as stern and professional as her reputation suggested. She was a legend in the colonial navy, one of the few officers who had successfully defended human colonies against pirate raids using nothing but tactical genius and stubborn determination.
Mr. Chen, the Admiral said without preamble, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. My xenobiology experts tell me that your alien friend just destroyed 3 ships using technology that operates on principles we can't even begin to comprehend.
My political advisors are telling me that harboring an exile from a galactic empire could bring down consequences that would make the corporate wars look like a minor disagreement. Marcus found himself straightening up under her gaze.
With respect, Admiral, what would you have done? Let them kill her?
Admiral Hayes smiled grimly.
The same thing you did, son.
But that doesn't change the fact that we need to prepare for what comes next.
What can you tell me about Zephyrian military capabilities?
According to Zara, they control about 10,000 systems across a significant portion of the galaxy. Their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours, and they have weapons that can destroy entire star systems. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but Marcus could see the calculation going on behind her eyes.
And what are the chances that they'll send a larger force to retrieve their exile?
None, Marcus replied with more confidence than he felt.
By destroying Admiral Kethmore's ships, Zara essentially declared war on the Empire. They're not going to try to bring her back anymore. They're going to try to eliminate the threat she represents.
Which includes us, now that we've sided with her.
Yes.
Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment, staring at something off-screen. When she looked back at Marcus, her expression had changed. There was something harder there, more resolved.
Mr. Chen, in your opinion, what are humanity's chances of surviving a war with the Zephyrian Empire using our current technology? Marcus didn't even need to think about it. 0. We wouldn't last a day against their main fleet. And, with your friend's help? That was a more complex question.
Marcus had seen what Zara could do, had felt the power flowing through her ship's living systems. But he had also heard her stories about the Empire's vast fleets and ancient weapons. Better, he said finally. But still not good. Zara is incredibly powerful, but she's just one person going up against an empire that's been building its military for 1,000,000 years.
Admiral Hayes nodded as if that confirmed something she had already suspected.
Then, we need to level the playing field. Before Marcus could ask what she meant by that, his comm unit chimed with an urgent message from Zara. She wanted to see him immediately aboard Whisper of Eternity. Marcus found Zara in what she called the ship's meditation chamber, a spherical room lined with crystal formations that hummed with barely audible harmonics. She was floating in the center of the space, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and tactical information. The human fleet is planning something, she said without opening her eyes. I can sense the change in their intentions through our bond. Marcus settled into a lotus position on the chamber floor, having learned that proximity to Zara during her meditation sessions had a calming effect on his increasingly enhanced nervous system.
Admiral Hayes wants to know about Zephyrian military capabilities.
I think she's trying to figure out how to fight a war we can't win.
Zara's eyes opened, glowing brighter in the chamber's dim light. She is right to think in terms of war. The Empire will not tolerate the precedent we have set. What precedent? A Zephyrian royal choosing a member of a lesser species as a bonded partner.
A primitive civilization successfully harboring an imperial exile. The demonstration that our advanced technology can be defeated through courage and determination. Zara gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show footage of the recent battle. Each of these things challenges the fundamental assumptions that the Empire is built upon.
Marcus watched the replay of Zara's ship effortlessly destroying the Hunter fleet.
So they'll send everything they have to stop us.
Eventually, yes. But not immediately.
The Empire moves slowly, bound by tradition and bureaucracy. They will spend months debating the proper response, forming committees to study the situation, arguing over jurisdiction and protocol.
That gives us time. Time for what?
Zara smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression that reminded Marcus she was, despite her exile, still a member of a species that had conquered thousands of worlds. Time to ensure that when they do come, they will find something very different from what they expect. The holographic displays changed again, now showing detailed schematics of human ships and weapon systems. But, overlaid on top of the familiar designs were modifications that looked like they came from a completely different technological paradigm. You want to upgrade our fleet, Marcus realized.
Not just your fleet. Your entire technological base.
Your manufacturing capabilities.
Your defensive installations. Your understanding of physics itself. The displays zoomed in on Earth, showing major population centers and industrial facilities. Humanity has something the Empire lost long ago, the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances.
Given the right tools, your species can accomplish in months what would take the Zephyrian centuries. Marcus felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear.
What Zara was proposing would change humanity forever. What's the catch? The catch is that this transformation will not be reversible.
Once humanity crosses this threshold, once your species gains access to truly advanced technology, you will become players in the galactic community whether you want to or not.
There will be no going back to quiet isolation on the rim of civilized space.
Before Marcus could respond, the ship's communication system activated.
Admiral Hayes' voice filled the chamber, though she was technically addressing the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. We are now entering the Sol system.
Prepare for arrival at Earth in 6 hours.
Zara stood up, her meditation session apparently complete.
It begins now, Marcus. The next few hours will determine whether humanity joins the galactic community as conquerors or as corpses. As they made their way to the ship's observation deck, Marcus found himself thinking about his childhood on Mars, about the dreams of exploration and discovery that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place.
Those early colonists would never have imagined that their descendants would someday face the choice between technological transcendence and extinction.
Earth appeared on the horizon like a blue jewel against the black of space, exactly as beautiful as every human child learned to imagine it. But now Marcus was seeing it through enhanced eyes, and he could perceive things that no unmodified human would ever notice. The orbital defense platforms with their primitive kinetic weapons. The communications satellites that would be helpless against Zephyrian electronic warfare. The population centers that had no protection against weapons that could crack continents. Your world is vulnerable, Zara observed, coming to stand beside him at the observation port. Every world is vulnerable to someone with enough firepower, Marcus replied.
The question is what we're willing to do to protect it.
Zara took his hand, and Marcus felt the bond between them pulse with shared determination. Then, let us go and find out. The arrival of the fleet caused immediate chaos in Earth's orbital traffic control systems. Merchant vessels scrambled to clear shipping lanes while military patrols tried to establish secure perimeters around what was obviously the most important convoy in human history. But it was the presence of Whisper of Eternity that really got everyone's attention. Zara's ship was unlike anything in human experience, its organic curves and crystalline structures making it look more like a piece of alien artwork than a military vessel. When it took up position in a stable orbit around Earth, every telescope and sensor on the planet focused on it. The communication channels were flooded with demands for information from every government, corporation, and media outlet on Earth.
What was the alien ship? Who was aboard it? What did it want? Admiral Hayes managed the information flow with the skill of someone who had spent decades dealing with political complications.
But Marcus could see the strain in her expression when she finally established a three-way communication link between Whisper of Eternity, the fleet command ship, and Earth's United Colonial Administration headquarters. President Chen Zhao appeared on screen looking every bit as overwhelmed as Marcus felt. The man who had successfully navigated humanity through the challenge of establishing a multi-world colonial government was now facing the prospect of first contact with an alien species.
Admiral Hayes, President Chen said formally, I understand we have a situation that requires immediate attention.
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Mr. Marcus Chen, a civilian contractor who has become our primary liaison with our alien guest. And this is Zara Thyss Valandra, formerly a member of the Zephyrian royal family. When Zara appeared on screen, President Chen's carefully maintained composure slipped for just a moment.
It was one thing to hear reports about an alien visitor.
It was another entirely to see 7 feet of obviously non-human intelligence looking back at you with glowing violet eyes. Your Highness, President Chen said carefully, welcome to human space.
We are honored by your presence.
Zara inclined her head graciously.
The honor is mine, President Chen.
Your species has shown me kindness when my own people cast me out. I do not forget such debts.
I understand there have been some complications involving ships from your former government.
That situation has been resolved, Zara replied with a tone that suggested the matter was not open for discussion. However, it has created new challenges that affect the security of human space.
President Chen leaned forward in his chair. What kind of challenges? Marcus stepped into the conversation. Mr. President, by harboring Zara and defending her against Zephyrian forces, humanity has essentially declared independence from imperial authority. That's going to have consequences.
What sort of consequences?
Zara answered before Marcus could respond. The Zephyrian Empire will eventually send a fleet to eliminate what they perceive as a threat to galactic stability.
Based on current Imperial doctrine, I estimate that force will consist of approximately 50 battle cruisers, each capable of sterilizing a planet's surface in a matter of hours. The silence that followed that statement stretched for several seconds. President Chen looked like a man who had just been told that an asteroid was about to impact his homeworld.
And, what are our options? He finally asked. You have two choices, Zara said bluntly.
Surrender me to Imperial justice, which will result in my immediate execution but might spare your species from retaliation. Or accept my offer to help transform humanity into something capable of standing against Imperial power.
What would that transformation involve?
Instead of answering with words, Zara gestured, and the communication display filled with technical specifications that made Marcus's enhanced mind reel with possibilities.
Faster-than-light drives that operated on principles beyond human understanding. Weapons that could reshape matter at the quantum level.
Manufacturing techniques that could build entire starships in a matter of days. With these technologies, Zara said as the displays cycled through thousands of pages of information, humanity could build a fleet capable of defending itself within a single year. Your industrial capacity, combined with your species' natural adaptability, would allow for a rate of advancement that the Empire would find impossible to counter.
President Chen studied the displays with the expression of a man trying to comprehend something beyond his experience. And, the price for this assistance? Zara's expression grew serious. The price is the end of humanity as you know it.
Access to such advanced technology will fundamentally change your society, your economy, your understanding of your place in the universe.
There will be no returning to the simple colonial existence you have known.
Marcus found himself holding his breath as he waited for the president's response. In the space of a few minutes, humanity's leader was being asked to make a decision that would affect the future of the entire species. President Chen looked directly at Marcus through the communication link. Mr. Chen, you've spent the most time with our guest. What's your assessment of this situation? Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him.
Mr. President, I believe Zara is telling the truth about the Imperial threat.
I've seen what their technology can do, and we don't have any defense against it. But I also believe she's right about what this transformation will cost us. If we accept her help, we stop being the same species that first reached for the stars.
And, your recommendation?
Marcus looked at Zara, seeing the fierce intelligence in her glowing eyes, feeling the bond between them pulse with shared purpose.
We reach for the stars anyway, sir. It's what humans do.
President Chen smiled for the first time since the conversation had begun.
Then, I suppose we have a lot of work to do. 6 months after the decision to accept Zara's technological assistance, Earth was unrecognizable.
The orbital shipyards that had once struggled to produce a single frigate every 3 months were now launching completed battle cruisers on a weekly basis. Manufacturing facilities across every human world had been upgraded with matter compilers and quantum foundries that could assemble complex machinery from raw atomic materials. Marcus stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest flagship, the UES Prometheus Rising, watching teams of construction mechs supply the final touches to what would be the 20th vessel in humanity's new battle fleet. The ship was a hybrid of human engineering principles and Zephyrian technology, creating something that neither species could have built alone. It is magnificent, Zara said, coming to stand beside him. Over the months, her appearance had subtly changed as well. The royal armor had been replaced with something more practical but no less impressive, and the symbols that marked their bond had spread to cover more of her skin in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow in response to her emotions. It's terrifying is what it is, Marcus replied. 6 months ago, the most advanced weapon humanity had was a magnetic acceleration cannon. Now we're building ships that can manipulate gravity and alter local spacetime. The transformation hadn't been without its challenges. When word of humanity's rapid technological advancement had spread through the inner systems, it had triggered what the media was calling the Great Migration. Millions of people had abandoned their homes on older colony worlds to seek opportunities in the new industries springing up around Zephyrian-enhanced manufacturing centers. The economic disruption had been massive. Traditional industries had become obsolete overnight, while entirely new fields of study had emerged to handle technologies that operated on principles barely understood by human science. Universities had been forced to restructure their entire curricula, and millions of workers had needed to be retrained for jobs that hadn't existed a year earlier. But perhaps the most significant change had been in humanity's perception of itself. The species that had once seen itself as a minor player on the galactic stage was rapidly developing the confidence and capabilities of a major power.
Admiral Hayes reports that our deep space reconnaissance drones have detected Zephyrian scout ships at the edge of our territory, Zara mentioned casually.
Marcus felt his enhanced nervous system register the implied threat.
How long do we have? The scouts are gathering information about our new capabilities.
Based on Imperial doctrine, they will observe for several weeks before reporting back to their commanders.
After that, Zara shrugged.
The Empire moves slowly, but when it moves, it does so with overwhelming force. Marcus activated his personal communication unit and established a connection to the Fleet Command Center. Admiral Hayes appeared on screen, looking as composed and professional as ever despite the incredible responsibility that had been placed on her shoulders.
Admiral, I understand we have visitors. 3 scout ships, operating at the extreme edge of our sensor range.
They're being very careful not to enter claimed human territory, but they're clearly conducting intelligence-gathering operations.
Admiral Hayes paused. How long before they report back to their superiors? Zara stepped into the communication field.
Imperial scouts typically observe for 30 standard days before filing their reports. However, given the unusual nature of what they are observing, they may extend that period to ensure accuracy.
And, once they report?
The Empire will convene a council of war to determine the appropriate response. That process typically takes 60 to 90 days. Then, they will assemble the necessary fleet and begin their advance.
Zara's expression grew grim. We have perhaps 6 months before the first Imperial battle groups arrive. Admiral Hayes nodded as if she had expected this news.
Then, we need to accelerate our preparations.
Mr. Chen, I want you and our alien advisor to report to the Luna facility immediately. Dr. Williams has been working on something that might give us an edge. The Luna facility had been humanity's primary research installation before the Zephyrian technology transfer.
Now it had been transformed into something that resembled a cross between a laboratory and an alien cathedral. Crystalline structures grown from Zephyrian biotechnology intertwine with human computing systems, creating hybrid installations that could process information at rates that approached the limits of causality.
Dr. Sarah Williams met them at the facility's main entrance, looking exhausted but excited.
The past 6 months had been kind to her career if not her sleep schedule. Her studies of Zephyrian biology and technology had made her one of the most important scientists in human space.
Marcus, Zara, thank you for coming so quickly. I think we've had a breakthrough that could change everything. She led them through corridors lined with displays showing the current status of humanity's technological development.
Manufacturing output, fleet construction schedules, population adaptation statistics. The numbers were staggering, representing a rate of advancement that would have been inconceivable just a year earlier. The problem we've been facing, Dr. Williams explained as they walked, is that while Zara's technology has given us incredible new capabilities, we're still limited by human biology. Our reflexes, our cognitive processing speed, our ability to interface with advanced systems. We can build ships that think faster than we do, but we can't effectively command them. They arrived at a laboratory filled with equipment that Marcus only partially recognized. At the center of the room was a chamber that looked disturbingly organic, its walls pulsing with the same bioluminescent patterns he had seen aboard Whisper of Eternity. You've been working on enhancement procedures, Zara observed, her tone neutral.
Not just enhancement. Transformation.
Dr. Williams activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of Marcus's modified physiology. The bond between you and Marcus has already begun altering his biology in ways that should be impossible. But the changes have been limited, constrained by the fact that he's still fundamentally human.
Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly are you proposing? Complete integration. Using the bond between you as a template, we can create a procedure that would allow other humans to undergo similar modifications.
Not just enhanced reflexes and durability, but true compatibility with Zephyrian technology. The implications of what Dr. Williams was suggesting hit Marcus like a physical blow. You want to turn people into something like me. I want to give humanity the tools it needs to survive the coming war, Dr. Williams replied firmly.
The Imperial fleet that's coming won't just be using advanced technology.
It will be crewed by beings who have evolved alongside that technology for millions of years.
We need to level that playing field. Zara had been studying the displays with growing interest. The modifications you are proposing would be irreversible. Those who undergo this transformation would no longer be entirely human.
But they would be something more than human, Dr. Williams countered. Something capable of standing against an empire that has ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. Marcus looked around the laboratory, imagining hundreds or thousands of people lying in chambers like the one at the room's center, undergoing transformations that would fundamentally alter their species' future.
How many people are we talking about?
Initially, we would focus on military personnel and key technical specialists. Pilots who need to interface directly with our new ship systems.
Engineers who need to understand Zephyrian manufacturing processes at an intuitive level.
Scientists who need to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Dr. Williams brought up another display showing recruitment statistics.
We have over 50,000 volunteers already.
That number surprised Marcus. 50,000 people willing to undergo unknown alien modifications?
50,000 people who understand that the alternative is extinction, Dr. Williams corrected. Word about the Imperial threat has spread despite our attempts to control information flow.
People know what's coming.
Zara had been unusually quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up.
There is something you should understand about what you are proposing. The modifications that have occurred in Marcus are not simply technological enhancements.
They represent a fundamental shift in the nature of his existence.
What do you mean?
The bond between us has made him partially Zephyrian at a cellular level.
He can no longer age as normal humans do.
He is immune to most diseases and toxins.
His lifespan has been extended indefinitely. Zara looked directly at Marcus. In becoming mine, you have become something that will outlive your original species. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. You're saying I'm immortal? Not immortal. But your natural lifespan now measures in millennia rather than decades. Zara's expression grew apologetic.
I should have explained this earlier, but I was not certain the modifications would take hold so completely. Dr. Williams was frantically taking notes as she recorded this conversation.
This changes everything. If the enhancement process grants extended lifespans, then we're not just talking about creating a military force. We're talking about creating a new branch of human evolution. Before Marcus could fully process the implications of what he had just learned, alarms began blaring throughout the facility.
Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red, and a computerized voice began announcing a general alert.
All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified vessels detected in the outer system.
This is not a drill.
Admiral Hayes' voice came through the communication system moments later. All senior staff, report for immediate briefing. We have a situation.
The briefing room at Luna Command had been hastily converted from a standard conference facility into something resembling a war room. Holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in the Sol system, with particular attention focused on 3 new contacts that had appeared at the system's edge.
The Zephyrian scout ships have moved into our territory, Admiral Hayes announced without preamble. They're no longer just observing.
They're actively scanning our installations and fleet positions. Marcus studied the tactical display, his enhanced perception picking up details that would have been invisible to unmodified human senses.
They're not just gathering intelligence. They're mapping our defensive capabilities. Agreed.
Which means they're either preparing for an immediate attack, or they're conducting final reconnaissance before calling in a larger force.
Admiral Hayes looked directly at Zara. What's your assessment?
Zara's expression had grown cold and calculating. The Empire has decided that the threat we represent requires immediate action. The scout ships are preparing the way for a hunter fleet similar to the one that pursued me to your research station.
How large a fleet? Significantly larger than the 3 ships I destroyed.
Probably 20 to 30 vessels, commanded by someone with the authority to make tactical decisions without consulting the Empire.
Admiral Hayes activated another display showing the current status of humanity's defensive forces.
20 completed battlecruisers, each equipped with hybrid technology that theoretically made them capable of engaging Zephyrian vessels on equal terms. But theory and practice were often very different things.
Can we win? She asked bluntly. Not with conventional tactics, Zara replied.
The Imperial commanders will expect us to fight like a typical primitive species, using massed formations and straightforward weapon exchanges.
If we give them what they expect, they will destroy us. Then, what do you suggest?
Zara looked around the briefing room, her gaze settling on each of the senior officers present.
We give them something they do not expect. We show them what humanity is capable of when it fully embraces its potential.
Marcus felt a chill as he realized what she was suggesting.
You want to use the enhancement process on our military personnel. Not just the military. Everyone who is willing and capable. Zara's expression grew fierce.
The Empire believes that primitive species are limited by their biology, that advanced technology is wasted on beings who cannot fully utilize it. We prove them wrong by showing them what happens when biology and technology are truly integrated. Dr. Williams leaned forward.
The enhancement process isn't fully tested.
We don't know what the failure rate might be, or what long-term effects we might be creating.
The long-term effects of losing this war are considerably worse, Admiral Hayes pointed out grimly.
Marcus found himself thinking about the 50,000 volunteers who had already signed up for enhancement procedures. People who were willing to undergo unknown transformations for the chance to protect their species. It was exactly the kind of stubborn courage that had driven humanity to reach for the stars in the first place.
How long would we need? He asked.
Dr. Williams consulted her notes.
With the new equipment and Zara's assistance, we could process approximately 1,000 people per day. To enhance our entire military force would take about 2 months. We don't have 2 months, Admiral Hayes said.
Intelligence suggests the Imperial fleet will arrive in 6 weeks at most.
Then, we enhance who we can and make do with the rest, Marcus replied. It's not like we have a lot of other options.
Zara activated her personal communication device and began speaking in the fluid, musical language of her people.
After a few moments, she switched back to English. Whisper of Eternity is en route to Luna.
She carries manufacturing equipment that will allow us to set up additional enhancement facilities. We can increase our processing rate significantly.
Admiral Hayes nodded decisively. Then, that's what we do.
Dr. Williams, begin enhancement procedures immediately. Priority goes to our most experienced pilots and tactical officers. We'll work our way down the list from there. As the meeting broke up and people began rushing to implement what amounted to a complete transformation of humanity's military structure, Marcus found himself standing alone with Zara in the briefing room.
Are we doing the right thing? He asked quietly. We are doing the necessary thing, Zara replied. The Empire has forced this choice upon us by threatening your people. We can either adapt or be destroyed. Marcus looked at the tactical displays still showing the positions of the Zephyrian scout ships. And, after we win? What happens to all the people who have been enhanced?
Zara smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression that reminded Marcus she was still, despite everything, a member of a species that had conquered thousands of worlds. After we win, Marcus, humanity will no longer be a minor species on the rim of civilized space. You will be the equals of any power in the galaxy.
Including the Zephyrian Empire?
Especially the Zephyrian Empire. Zara's eyes blazed with violet fire. They cast me out because they feared change. Soon they will learn what happens when change comes for them instead. As they left the briefing room to oversee the beginning of humanity's transformation, Marcus realized that the quiet maintenance worker from Mars was well and truly gone. In his place was something new, something that carried within it the potential to reshape the galaxy. The only question now was whether humanity would be ready when the Empire came calling. The Imperial fleet arrived exactly when Zara had predicted, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a constellation of deadly stars. 47 vessels arranged in perfect formation, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had ever built. At their center was a flagship that dwarfed even the massive battlecruisers, its hull inscribed with symbols that proclaimed it to be the personal vessel of an imperial prince.
Marcus stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, watching the tactical displays update as humanity's sensors cataloged the incoming threat. Over the past 6 weeks, 37,000 volunteers had undergone the enhancement process. Not all of them had survived the transformation, but those who had were something unprecedented in galactic history, humans who could think and react at superhuman speeds while maintaining the creativity and adaptability that made their species unique. Imperial flagship is broadcasting on all frequencies, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, her enhanced neural interfaces allowing her to process communication data at rates that would have been impossible for an unmodified human. They're demanding immediate surrender and the return of what they're calling stolen Imperial property. Admiral Hayes, herself one of the first to undergo enhancement, studied the formation of Imperial ships with the calculating gaze of someone whose tactical processing capabilities had been increased by several orders of magnitude. Stolen property? They mean me, Zara said quietly.
She stood at the center of the bridge, her appearance having undergone subtle changes as the battle approached. The symbols covering her skin were glowing brighter, and the air around her shimmered with barely contained energy. In Imperial law, an exiled royal who bonds with a member of another species becomes property of the Empire, to be retrieved and disposed of at their convenience. Marcus felt anger surge through the bond they shared.
They think they own you?
They think they own everything, Zara replied. That assumption has served them well for 1,000,000 years.
Today, we teach them otherwise.
The main communication screen activated, showing the bridge of the Imperial flagship. The being who appeared was clearly related to Zara, sharing the same basic features but somehow managing to make them appear cruel and arrogant. His armor was more elaborate than anything Marcus had seen, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. I am Prince Kathos of the Second Royal House, the figure announced, his voice carrying harmonics that made the bridge's enhanced crew wince. I have come to retrieve Imperial property and to punish the primitive species that dared to interfere with Imperial justice. Admiral Hayes stepped forward, her enhanced physiology allowing her to withstand the psychological pressure the prince was projecting.
This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the United Earth Colonial Administration. You are in sovereign human space without authorization. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Prince Kathos laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Consequences? From a species that has barely crawled out of its birth system? Your greatest achievement is learning to build crude chemical rockets, and you threaten us with consequences?
Your information is out of date, Admiral Hayes replied calmly.
We suggest you update your intelligence files before making assumptions about human capabilities.
The prince's expression grew contemptuous. Nothing you primitives have accomplished in your brief existence could possibly threaten the might of the Empire.
Surrender the exile and her contaminated bondmate, and your deaths will be swift.
Marcus stepped into the communication field, his enhanced presence allowing him to project the same kind of psychological pressure that the prince was using. Counteroffer, turn around and leave our space, and we won't destroy your entire fleet. The silence that followed Marcus's statement stretched for several seconds. Prince Kathos stared at him with an expression of growing disbelief. Impossible, the prince whispered.
No primitive should be capable of bond enhancement. The transformation process requires millennia of genetic preparation.
Zara moved to stand beside Marcus, her own presence blazing with power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. You have been absent from imperial politics for too long, brother. You have forgotten that the universe has room for new possibilities.
Brother? Marcus looked at Zara in surprise.
Prince Kathos is my younger sibling, Zara explained without taking her eyes off the communication screen. He was always the council's favorite, traditional and predictable. I assume he volunteered to lead this expedition as a way to prove his worthiness for the throne. Prince Kathos recovered from his shock and began to radiate killing intent, so intense that several bridge officers took involuntary steps backward.
sister or not, you have violated the most sacred laws of our people. The contamination you represent must be cleansed.
Try it, Marcus said simply. The prince's response was to cut the communication link and order his fleet to attack positions. 47 Imperial warships began advancing on the inner system, their weapons charging with energies that could crack planets. But humanity's fleet was no longer where the Imperial censors expected it to be. The enhancement process hadn't just modified human biology, it had fundamentally changed how human military doctrine worked. Enhanced crews could process tactical information at superhuman speeds, allowing for coordination and maneuvers that would have been impossible with normal human reflexes. The 20 human battle cruisers had scattered throughout the system, using gravitational anomalies and solar interference to mask their positions. When the Imperial fleet entered the inner system, expecting to find humanity's forces arranged in traditional defensive formations, they instead found empty space. The first Imperial ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, weapons blazing as it swept space for hidden enemies. The next moment, the area it had occupied was empty except for a brief flash of displaced energy. The UES Nemesis had struck from concealment among the asteroid belt, its hybrid weapons systems tearing through Imperial shields that had been designed to deflect conventional energy weapons. But the human ship wasn't using conventional anything. Its primary weapon was a gravity lance that could compress matter into microscopic black holes, while its secondary armaments included quantum disruption beams that could make enemy ships forget how to exist. Prince Cathos's fleet tried to adapt, spreading out to avoid concentrated attacks and attempting to use their superior numbers to overwhelm the human vessels. But they were fighting an enemy that thought differently than any they had ever encountered. Enhanced human crews could coordinate attacks across multiple ships with split-second timing. They could process battlefield information fast enough to adapt their tactics in real time. Most importantly, they could take risks that no Imperial commander would ever consider. The UES Titan emerged from behind Jupiter's Great Red Spot and fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes at the Imperial formation. When the enemy ships maneuvered to avoid the attack, they found themselves exactly where the UES Apollo had been waiting. The ambush destroyed 3 Imperial vessels in as many seconds. Marcus watched the battle unfold from the bridge of Prometheus Rising, his enhanced perception allowing him to follow tactical developments that were happening faster than normal human senses could process. They're not adapting fast enough to our tactics. Imperial doctrine hasn't changed significantly in 50,000 years, Zara observed. They expect enemies to fight according to established patterns. Humanity's willingness to improvise is beyond their experience. But the Imperial fleet was learning. Prince Cathos began pulling his ships into tighter formations, using overlapping shield networks to protect against surprise attacks. His heavy cruisers started laying down suppression fire that could destroy anything in a 1,000,000 cubic kilometer area, making concealment tactics less effective. Time for Phase 2, Admiral Hayes announced. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations to come. Instead of continuing to fight as individual ships, the human fleet began coordinating as a single entity. Enhanced crews shared sensory data across quantum communication links, creating a collective awareness that spanned the entire battlefield. The 20 human vessels moved with perfect synchronization, their attacks timed to hit Imperial ships from multiple angles simultaneously. When the enemy tried to concentrate fire on individual human vessels, they found themselves shooting at space that had been occupied by quantum duplicates while the real ships struck from unexpected directions. Prince Cathos's flagship found itself surrounded by what appeared to be 6 identical copies of the Prometheus Rising. 5 of them were quantum mirages, but the Imperial gunners had no way to tell which one was real until it was too late. Marcus felt the moment when Prince Cathos realized he was going to lose. Through the bond with Zara, he could sense the prince's disbelief turning into desperation and, then, into rage. He's going to do something drastic, Marcus warned. Zara's expression grew alarmed. He carries planet-killer weapons. If he cannot win, he may attempt to destroy Earth as a final act of revenge. Admiral Hayes immediately ordered the fleet to converge on the Imperial flagship, but Prince Cathos was already powering up weapons that operated on principles humanity barely understood. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the human sensors had ever recorded. That's when Marcus made a decision that would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. I'm going aboard his ship, he announced, moving toward the bridge's transport platform.
Marcus, no.
Zara reached for him, but he was already activating the quantum teleportation system.
He's family, Zara. Handle this like family.
The transport beam deposited Marcus directly onto the bridge of the Imperial flagship, where his arrival caused immediate chaos among the crew. Imperial warriors who had served for centuries found themselves facing a human.